The last thing I expected to see on my morning patrol was an alien battleship larger than Manhattan hovering over Lake Michigan. Yet there it was, its dark metallic surface reflecting the golden sunrise as it cast an ominous shadow over Chicago's skyline. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, and this is how humanity gave the most powerful empire in the galaxy a reason to fear us. It started as a routine day at the UEDF headquarters. I was reviewing satellite data when our quantum sensors detected a massive gravitational anomaly at the edge of our solar system. Within hours, over 50 warships emerged from what we later learned were hyperspace gates. The Galactic hegemony had arrived, and they came expecting an easy conquest. They didn't know that we'd been preparing for this moment for decades. Ever since we detected their long-range scout ships 20 years ago, Earth's nations had united under a single banner. We'd reversed engineered what little alien tech we could salvage from crashed probes and developed countermeasures they never saw coming. The first contact transmission was typical of their kind, arrogant, demanding immediate surrender. Their supreme commander, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a jellyfish, spoke perfect English through their universal translator. Your species has been deemed suitable for integration into the hegemony. Resist, and you will be forcibly pacified. You have one planetary rotation to submit. What they didn't realize was that humans had something they'd never encountered in their 10,000 years of expanding across the galaxy: unconventional thinking and a stubborn refusal to bow down to superior forces. While their civilization had grown comfortable with their technological superiority, we had spent our entire history fighting among ourselves, perfecting the art of warfare against equals and finding ways to defeat theoretically superior forces. I remember standing in the Joint Chiefs War Room as Admiral Chen, no relation, laid out our response plan. They expect us to either surrender or attempt a direct confrontation, he said, his weathered face illuminated by holographic displays. We'll do neither. Operation Ghost Protocol is now in effect. You see, the hegemony had never lost a war. In fact, they'd never fought a proper war in over a millennium. Their standard procedure was to show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and accept their new subjects into their empire. The few species that resisted were quickly crushed by their superior technology. But they'd never faced an enemy that had spent millennia perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. Our first move wasn't to attack their ships or even to respond to their ultimatum. Instead, we activated our planetary stealth grid, technology we developed by studying their own cloaking systems. To their sensors, Earth suddenly appeared to be experiencing a massive geological event, with readings that would make any invasion suicidal. It was a bluff, but one based on their own data protocols. The confusion in their next transmission was palpable. Their supreme commander's tentacles writhed in agitation as they demanded an explanation for the planetary changes. We responded with a message that would become legendary throughout the galaxy. The planet you see is humanity's gift to you, our home, modified to become the perfect trap. You have 1 hour to retreat or reactivate planetary defense systems that will ensure mutual destruction. We die free rather than live as slaves. Of course, we couldn't actually destroy the planet, but after analyzing thousands of their historical records hidden in their leaked data streams, we knew something crucial: that hegemony had never faced an enemy willing to destroy themselves to achieve victory. The concept was so alien to them that they had no protocols for it. What happened next would change the course of galactic history. As I stood on the observation deck, watching their mighty fleet, I saw their ships begin to pull back. Not in retreat, but in preparation for what they thought would be a negotiation. That's when we revealed our true capabilities. Quantum torpedoes, theoretical in their science but perfected in secret by human engineers, phased through their supposedly impenetrable shields. We didn't aim to destroy their ships, just disable their primary systems. The hegemony watched in horror as their most advanced defensive technology was bypassed by weapons they thought impossible to create. Impossible, their supreme commander broadcasted across all frequencies. Your civilization is barely interstellar. You cannot possess such technology. The fear in their translator's artificial voice was unmistakable. That's when Admiral Chen delivered the words that would echo through the galaxy for centuries to come. We don't have to be better than you at everything. We just had to be better at one thing: fighting. This is your final warning. Retreat, or face a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for this moment. Their response never came. Instead, the mighty hegemony fleet, for the first time in its history, turned and fled. They'd never encountered a species that combined technological ingenuity with the sheer audacity to risk everything for freedom. They'd never faced humans before. But this was just the beginning. As I watch their ships disappear into hyperspace, I know they'll be back. Not for conquest this time, but for something far more interesting: diplomacy. Because today they learned something that would reshape their empire. Sometimes the most dangerous species aren't the ones with the most advanced technology, but the ones with the most determination to remain free. The war that never happened changed everything. As I compile this report for future generations, I can't help but smile. Humanity's first contact with a galactic civilization didn't end in submission or destruction, but with the most powerful empire in known space learning a crucial lesson: never underestimate a species that has turned warfare into an art form. And now, as we prepare for their inevitable return, we stand ready, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. Because today, humanity didn't just survive, we changed the rules of the game. The question isn't whether they'll return, but what they'll find when they do. Because while they've been running, we've been preparing. This is Captain Sarah Chen, signing off for now. But trust me, this story is far from over. The galaxy is about to learn why picking a fight with humans might be the last mistake any empire ever makes. 3 months after the hegemony's retreat, I found myself standing in the newly constructed Galactic Relations Center in Geneva. The massive structure, built in record time using a combination of human and reverse-engineered alien technology, served as humanity's first official diplomatic outpost for extraterrestrial relations. The irony wasn't lost on me. Our first diplomatic building was constructed because we'd successfully threatened an empire spanning thousands of star systems. Captain Chen, they're approaching through the designated coordinates. Lieutenant Rivera's voice crackled through my earpiece. Our early warning systems had detected 3 hegemony vessels emerging from hyperspace. Not warships this time, but sleek diplomatic cruisers. Still, we kept our defense grid powered up. Trust is earned, not given, especially when dealing with an empire that had subjugated countless civilizations. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of activity. Every nation on Earth had worked together with unprecedented cooperation, preparing for this moment. We'd established the United Earth Diplomatic Corps, developed new protocols for interstellar relations, and continued advancing our defensive capabilities. Just because we'd scared them off once didn't mean we could rest on our laurels. I watched through the center's quantum glass windows as their lead ship descended through the clouds. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a massive silver manta ray gliding through an ocean of air. The vessel was roughly the size of a cruise ship, its hull adorned with symbols we now knew represented their diplomatic corps. Our linguistics team had been working overtime, analyzing every piece of communication we'd intercepted over the years. Permission to land granted. I transmitted, following our new first contact protocols. Please follow the designated flight path. The fact that I was now politely giving instructions to the same civilization that had tried to conquer us mere months ago wasn't lost on me. The ship landed with impossible grace on the designated pad, its anti-gravity systems creating barely a ripple in the air. As the diplomatic delegation emerged, I couldn't help but think about how much we learned about them since our first encounter. The hegemony, for all its military might, was a deeply bureaucratic society. They had protocols for everything, except, as we discovered, dealing with species that didn't follow their expected patterns of behavior. Their lead diplomat was different from the military commander we faced before. While still maintaining the mantis jellyfish appearance characteristic of their species, this one's coloring was more subdued, with patterns we now recognized as denoting their equivalent of a diplomatic corps. They called themselves the Orcs, though that was as close as human vocal cords could get to pronouncing it. Greetings, representatives of Earth, the diplomat's translator conveyed, their tentacles moving in what we learned was a gesture of peaceful intent. I am Chief Negotiator Zixtal of the Galactic Hegemony. We come seeking understanding. Admiral Chen stepped forward, his military uniform adorned with the new insignia of the United Earth Government. We welcome peaceful dialogue, he responded, following the carefully crafted script our Senate diplomacy team had prepared, though we trust you understand our need to maintain certain precautions. The chief negotiator's upper appendages shifted in what we learned was their equivalent of a nod. Your species has earned that right. Never in our recorded history has any civilization managed to force a retreat of a hegemony fleet. We have questions. What followed was the most surreal diplomatic meeting in human history. In a conference room designed to accommodate both species' biological needs, we began to learn about each other. The hegemony, it turned out, had ruled the known galaxy for so long that they'd forgotten what it meant to face real opposition. Their technology was superior in most ways, but they'd stagnated, becoming complacent in their dominance. Your quantum torpedoes, one of their scientific advisors asked, their translator struggling to convey their mix of fear and curiosity. How did you develop them? Our calculations showed such weapons were theoretically impossible. Admiral Chen smiled. Sometimes the impossible becomes possible when you have no other choice. Humanity has a long history of achieving the impossible when our backs are against the wall. I observed their reactions carefully as we shared carefully selected information about Earth's history. Their tentacles writhed in what our xenobiologists identified as shock when we explained how humans had developed most of our technology through centuries of warfare and competition among ourselves. You mean you advanced by fighting each other? The concept seemed to disturb them deeply. The hegemony had eliminated internal conflict so long ago that the very idea of technological progress through warfare was alien to them. We advanced because we had to, I explained, stepping into the conversation. Every major leap in human technology, from the wheel to spaceflight, was at least partially driven by conflict or competition. We never had the luxury of peaceful development under a unified government. The diplomatic team's color patterns shifted rapidly, their equivalent of intense discussion among themselves. When they finally responded, their translator conveyed a tone we hadn't heard before, respect tinged with fear. We have reviewed the data from our initial encounter. Chief Negotiator Zixtal stated, your species possesses something we had not encountered in our expansion, the ability to develop countermeasures to superior technology in extraordinarily short timeframes. This concerns us. Admiral Chen leaned forward. It should, but it could also benefit you. This was the moment we'd been preparing for. Humanity doesn't seek conflict with the hegemony. What we seek is independence and recognition. In return, we offer something you've lost over your millennia of unchallenged rule: innovation. The negotiators' colors shifted again, this time in patterns we hadn't seen before. Their next words would set the stage for humanity's role in galactic politics. Perhaps there is wisdom in this. The hegemony has not faced significant challenges in over 1,000 years. Your species' unique approach to problem solving could be valuable. As I listened to the continuing negotiations, I couldn't help but think about how far we'd come. 3 months ago, we were facing potential enslavement or extinction. Now we were negotiating terms for humanity's entry into galactic society, not as subjects, but as equals. But something about the whole situation kept nagging at me. The hegemony had adapted to our resistance too quickly, shifted to diplomacy too smoothly. As I watched their diplomatic team, I noticed subtle patterns in their coloration that didn't match our xenobiology team's observations. Something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Later that evening, as I reviewed the day's recordings in my office, I noticed something in the background of their diplomatic vessel's landing. A brief energy signature that our sensors hadn't initially flagged. It was similar to the readings we detected before their first arrival, but on a much smaller scale. I immediately contacted Admiral Chen through our secure channel. Sir, I think there's something we need to discuss. The hegemony might not be telling us everything about their intentions. His response was immediate. Meet me in the secure briefing room in 10 minutes. Bring everything you found. As I gathered my data, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were seeing only part of a much larger picture. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They wouldn't change their entire approach to expansion because of one setback. They were playing a longer game, and we needed to figure out what it was before it was too late. The real question wasn't whether they were planning something. It was what they were planning, and whether humanity's newfound position in the galaxy was as secure as we thought. As I headed to the briefing room, I realized that our first victory might have been the easy part. The real challenge was just beginning. The briefing room felt smaller than usual as I presented my findings to Admiral Chen and the Joint Chiefs. The energy signature I detected wasn't just similar to previous hegemony readings. It was a miniaturized version of their fleet's hyperspace wake. Someone or something had slipped through our defenses during the diplomatic landing. These patterns suggest micro-jumps, I explained, pointing to the data streams floating in the holographic display. Short-range teleportation, but on a scale we haven't seen before. Whatever came through, it was small enough to avoid our primary detection grid. Admiral Chen's expression darkened as he studied the readings. How many? Based on these signatures, I zoomed in on the temporal data. At least 30 micro-jumps during the diplomatic meeting, all perfectly timed to coincide with their ship's routine energy fluctuations. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. We've been so focused on the big picture, the ships, the diplomacy, the obvious threats, that we missed the subtle invasion happening right under our noses. That was 6 hours ago. Now, as I stand in the monitoring center watching real-time feeds from across the globe, those tiny anomalies have evolved into something far more concerning. Our quantum detection grid is picking up microscopic energy signatures in key locations, military installations, research facilities, and most worryingly, our planetary defense centers. Captain Chen, Lieutenant Rivera's voice cuts through my thoughts. You need to see this. He pulls up a magnified feed from one of our quantum microscopes, technology we developed to study alien materials at the subatomic level. What I see sends chills down my spine. Nanobots, billions of them, but not like anything we'd seen in our own research. These were clearly hegemony technology, but they weren't weapons or surveillance devices. They were changing things, restructuring matter at the atomic level. They're not here to fight us, I whisper, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. They're here to change us. I immediately think back to the diplomatic meetings, to the hegemony's surprisingly quick acceptance of our terms. They hadn't given up on conquering Earth. They just changed their approach. Why fight a species that excels at warfare when you can simply reprogram them? The emergency meeting that follows is the largest gathering of Earth's leadership since the formation of the United Earth Government. Representatives from every major nation crowd the secure chamber beneath Geneva, their faces illuminated by the harsh light of emergency displays. The nanobots appear to be focusing on our technology first. Dr. Patel, our lead scientist, explains. They're not destroying anything. They're upgrading it, integrating hegemony protocols and systems into our existing infrastructure. And we're just supposed to be grateful for this unauthorized upgrade. The Chinese representative's voice carries a sharp edge. This is still an invasion, just a more subtle one. She's right, of course. The hegemony isn't trying to defeat us. They're trying to assimilate us, make us more like them, more controllable. The diplomatic overtures were just a distraction while they implemented their real plan. But they made one crucial mistake. They underestimated human paranoia. After our first encounter with the hegemony, we hadn't just improved our visible defenses. We prepared for everything, including threats we couldn't even imagine yet. We have a countermeasure, Admiral Chen announces, his voice cutting through the growing panic in the room. Captain Chen explained Project Phoenix. I stepped forward, keying up the classified files on the main display. After we reversed engineered some of their basic technology, we didn't just copy it. We started thinking about how to defend against it. Project Phoenix is a quantum-entangled defense system that operates on the same principles as their nanobots, but with one key difference. It's purely human in origin. The display shows microscopic images of our own nanoscale defenders, crude by hegemony standards, but effective in their own way. We designed them not to fight the alien technology directly, but to adapt and redirect it, like a martial artist using an opponent's strength against them. The problem is, I continue, deploying Phoenix means revealing capabilities we've kept hidden, even from our own people. And once we activate it, we can't predict exactly how their technology will react. We could end up starting something we can't control. The room erupts in debate, but time isn't on our side. Our sensors show the hegemony's nanobots spreading exponentially. Within hours, they'll reach critical mass. By then, it won't matter what we decide. Earth's technology will be completely integrated into their systems. That's when the emergency alarms start blaring. Lieutenant Rivera rushes in, his face pale. Multiple contacts just emerged from hyperspace, he reports. The entire hegemony diplomatic fleet just jumped in. All of them. They're taking up position around Earth. On the main screen, we watch as hundreds of hegemony ships appear in high orbit. Not warships this time. Diplomatic vessels, research ships, cultural exchange cruisers. The kind of fleet you'd send to welcome a new member of your civilization. Chief Negotiator Zixtol's transmission comes through on all channels, their translator conveying what almost sounds like pride. Congratulations, humanity. The integration process is nearly complete. Soon you will be part of something greater than you could imagine. Resistance is unnecessary. Admiral Chen looks at me, the question clear in his eyes. Project Phoenix is ready, but using it means crossing a line we can't uncross. It means showing the hegemony, and ourselves, just how far we're willing to go to remain free. I think about everything that's led us to this moment, about how the hegemony has never faced a species that chose annihilation over submission, about how they've never understood that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our warfare. It's our absolute refusal to be controlled. The weight of Earth's future rests on the next few moments. In orbit, the hegemony fleet waits, probably expecting us to simply accept our upgrade into their civilization. They don't realize they just triggered humanity's most primal instinct, the drive to remain free at any cost. I take a deep breath and step toward the quantum control interface. The future of our species comes down to this moment, and the hegemony is about to learn why trying to reprogram humanity might be the biggest mistake in their 1,000-year history. The activation sequence for Project Phoenix glows before me, waiting for final authorization. Once we start this, there's no going back. The only question is, are we ready for what comes next? The briefing room door hissed shut behind me as I laid out my findings before Admiral Chen. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the anomalous energy readings from the diplomatic vessel's landing. Look at these patterns, sir. I pointed to the fluctuating waves. They're using some kind of quantum masking technology we haven't seen before. Admiral Chen's eyes narrowed as he studied the data. Through the window behind him, the hegemony's diplomatic vessel gleamed in the setting sun, its silver hull now taking on an almost blood-red hue. How many separate signatures are we looking at? That's the concerning part, I replied, expanding the display. The readings suggest multiple small-scale quantum events happening simultaneously across different locations. They're subtle enough to slip through our standard detection grid, but when you analyze them together, I overlaid the patterns, revealing a larger, more disturbing picture. They're creating a network. Admiral Chen breathed, seeing what I saw, right under our noses. Just then, Lieutenant Rivera burst into the room, his face pale. Sir, we're detecting similar energy signatures at every major military installation worldwide. They're in our systems. The realization hit like a physical blow. The diplomatic mission wasn't about peace at all. It was a Trojan horse. While we'd been focused on their obvious presence, discussing terms and protocols, they'd been seeding something throughout our defense network, something that had been quietly growing, spreading, infiltrating. Sound the global alert, Admiral Chen ordered, but before Lieutenant Rivera could reach the door, every screen in the room went dark. When they flickered back to life, the text was different. Alien symbols scrolled across our displays, gradually morphing into English. Integration process at 47% completion. The message read, "Resistance is inadvisable. I rushed to the quantum comm terminal, trying to establish contact with our other bases. The feeds showed chaos unfolding across the globe. Our most advanced defense systems, the very ones we used to drive off the hegemony's first attack, were being transformed from within, not destroyed but changed. Through the window, I watched as the diplomatic vessel began to pulse with a strange, rhythmic light. More ships were appearing in the sky above, not through hyperspace jumps, but simply fading into view. They'd been there all along, hidden by technology we hadn't even known to look for. They never left, I realized aloud. The retreat was just for show. They'd been here the whole time, waiting, preparing. Admiral Chen moved to the emergency protocol station, entering his command codes. "We prepared for something like this," he said grimly. "Project Firewall was designed for exactly this scenario. A complete system purge and restart." But when he hit the final command key, nothing happened. Instead, Chief Negotiator Zixtol's voice filled the room, though no speakers were active. "Your contingencies have already been accounted for, humans. We've had 3 months to study every aspect of your technology, your protocols, your thought patterns. Did you think we wouldn't learn from our first encounter?" Through the windows, we could see more diplomatic ships descending through the clouds, each pulsing with that same rhythmic light. But they weren't attacking. They were transforming. Their sleek hulls were shifting, changing, integrating with Earth's atmosphere itself. "This isn't an invasion," I whispered, the truth finally dawning. "It's an assimilation." Admiral Chen's face hardened as he turned to me. "Captain, remember Contingency Zero, the one we discussed but never officially documented?" My eyes widened. Of course, the one plan we'd never put into any system, never recorded, never even fully verbalized. The absolute last resort that existed only in the minds of a select few humans. "It's time," he said simply. As if on cue, the room's lights flickered again. The hegemony's integration process was accelerating, their technology spreading through our systems like a digital wildfire. But they'd made one critical mistake. They assumed that humanity's strength lay in our technology, our weapons, our defense systems. They were about to learn what we'd known all along. Humanity's true power isn't in what we build. It's in what we're willing to destroy to remain free. I placed my hand on the hidden biometric scanner beneath the conference table, feeling the subtle prick as it sampled my DNA. Admiral Chen did the same. 2 of only 5 humans alive who could activate Contingency Zero. Above us, the hegemony ships continued their transformation, unaware that beneath the surface of our apparent surrender, humanity's most desperate and most dangerous plan was about to unfold. Integration at 78% completion. The alien text scrolled across our screens. "Resistance is..." The message froze mid-sentence. For just a moment, everything went perfectly still. And in that stillness, I thought about how the hegemony, for all their advanced technology and millennia of experience, had never truly understood what they were dealing with. They were about to learn why you should never corner a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for the worst. Contingency Zero. Admiral Chen spoke clearly, his voice steady despite what we were about to unleash. Authorization Chensdera. Command code Prometheus Unbound. The floor beneath us began to vibrate as something deep underground awakened, something we'd built but hoped never to use, something that would either save humanity or condemn us all. The hegemony was about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our willingness to burn everything down and start over. The ground shook as Contingency Zero activated, but what happened next wasn't what any of us expected. Instead of the planned electromagnetic pulse that would wipe our systems clean, the underground facility began emitting a strange harmonic frequency. Through the windows, we watched as the hegemony ships suddenly stopped their transformation process, their hulls vibrating in response to the signal. "Sir," Lieutenant River called out, his eyes fixed on his tablet, which somehow still worked. "You need to see this. The signal. It's not ours." Admiral Chen rushed to his side, and I followed. The readings showed that Contingency Zero had been altered, not by the hegemony's integration process, but by something else entirely, something older. The frequency patterns were unlike anything in either human or hegemony databases. That's when we heard it. A new voice, neither human nor hegemony, speaking through every device in the room. Protocol M173 activated. Quarantine status lifted. The hegemony ships in the sky began to react violently, their sleek surfaces rippling like disturbed water. Chief Negotiator Zixtol's voice returned, but this time filled with something I'd never heard in their carefully modulated tones before: genuine fear. Impossible, the translator conveyed. The Guardians, they were just a myth. Before any of us could process what that meant, every screen in the facility lit up with new data. Information that had been hidden deep within Earth's core, waiting for this exact moment. It wasn't just humanity that had been preparing for the hegemony. Something had been preparing humanity. Timeline match confirmed. The unknown voice continued. Species development, within acceptable parameters. Emergency protocols, engaged. Admiral Chen's face went pale as he read the scrolling data. Captain, he whispered, look at these dates. These systems. They're millions of years old. They've been here, watching us, guiding our development, waiting to see if we'd be ready. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Our quantum torpedoes, our seemingly impossible technological leaps, they hadn't just been human ingenuity. We've been unconsciously accessing fragments of ancient knowledge, planted here by something. Something that had seen the hegemony coming long before humanity existed. Above us, the hegemony ships were trying to retreat, but the signal held them in place. Their integration process began to reverse, but not in the way we'd planned. Instead of just clearing their influence from our systems, the signal was extracting information, centuries of hegemony knowledge flowing into Earth's ancient databases. You were never the test. I transmitted to the hegemony fleet, finally understanding. We were, and you just helped us pass it. Chief Negotiator Zixtol's response was immediate. You don't understand what you're dealing with. The Guardians, they don't protect species. They weaponize them. Everything we did, the attempted conquest, the integration, it was to prevent this. To stop them from creating another. The transmission cut off as a new energy signature appeared in orbit. Something massive was emerging from hyperspace, but not through any jump point we or the hegemony had ever detected. The ship, if you could call it that, was unlike anything we'd ever seen. It seemed to bend reality around itself, its surface shifting between states of matter like a living thing. Evaluation complete, the ancient voice announced. Human species, confirmed viable. Implementing final phase. Lieutenant Rivera's tablet showed energy readings going off the charts. Whatever's happening, he reported, it's not just affecting us. Similar signals are being detected from other worlds. Dozens of them. Hidden systems like ours, all activating simultaneously. That's when we realized the full scope of what we were seeing. That hegemony hadn't become the galaxy's dominant power through natural expansion. They'd been herded, controlled, guided into that position, just like humanity had been prepared for this moment. But for what purpose? The answer came as the massive ship in orbit began broadcasting a message, not just to Earth, but to every hidden system now revealing itself across the galaxy. The time of testing is over. The real war begins. Admiral Chen looked at me, the weight of understanding heavy in his eyes. We thought we were fighting for our independence, he said quietly, but we were actually being recruited. Above us, more of the reality-bending ships were appearing, taking position around Earth like sentinel giants. The hegemony fleet hung suspended between them, their mighty empire suddenly looking very small indeed. And that's when the ancient voice spoke one final time, revealing a truth that would change everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. Welcome, humanity, to the Guardian Fleet. Your real training begins now. We had been so focused on preventing our own assimilation that we never considered a more terrifying possibility, that our resistance, our defiance, our very humanity had been shaped for a purpose. We weren't fighting against absorption into a galactic empire. We were being transformed into something far more powerful and far more dangerous. As the massive ships began their approach, I couldn't help but wonder, when all this was over, Would there be anything left of the humanity we were fighting so hard to preserve? The console in front of me lit up with new commands, knowledge flooding in from the ancient systems. Whatever was coming, whatever we were about to become, one thing was clear: the story of humanity's fight for independence was just the beginning. The real question was, what were we being prepared to fight against? The massive Guardian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like mountains made of liquid metal, their surfaces constantly shifting between states of matter. As they approached, I felt a strange resonance in my mind, not intrusive like the hegemony's integration attempt, but familiar, as if awakening something that had always been there. Admiral Chen gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles white. They're transmitting knowledge, centuries of information, flowing directly into our minds. He wasn't wrong. Images, concepts, and understanding flooded through my consciousness. The true history of our galaxy, the real purpose of the Guardian fleet, and most importantly, what we were about to face. The hegemony ships still hung suspended in the air, their crews forced to watch as humanity received the very thing they had fought so hard to prevent. Chief Negotiator Zixtal's final transmission cut through the cascade of information. You don't understand. We weren't trying to conquer you. We were trying to save you from this. That's when we saw it, the real reason behind everything. Through the quantum glass windows, reality itself seemed to tear open at the edge of our solar system. A massive void appeared, darker than space itself, and through it came something. Something that had been waiting, watching, testing species across countless galaxies for millions of years. The Void Hunters, the Guardian Eye's voice resonated in our minds. They seeded the universe with life, watching to see which species would evolve the right combination of traits. The hegemony was their first experiment, a species engineered to bring order to the galaxy. But they became too predictable, too rigid. The pieces finally fell into place. The hegemony hadn't stagnated naturally. They'd been designed that way. A controlled experiment in civilization building. But humanity, we were something else entirely. Your species, the Eye continued, evolved naturally, yet developed faster than any engineered race. Your adaptability, your drive to overcome impossible odds, these were the traits they were waiting for. The hegemony's attempt to assimilate you was the final test. Through the tear in space, massive shapes began to emerge, living ships that made the Guardian vessels look tiny in comparison. The Void Hunters had returned to collect their successful experiment, but they had made one critical miscalculation. The knowledge flowing into our minds wasn't just information, it was power. The Guardians hadn't just been watching humanity develop. They'd been subtly guiding us toward a specific realization that true strength comes not from technology or biology, but from choice. Now, Admiral Chen said quietly, understanding flooding his features, Lieutenant Rivera, activate the quantum resonance network. The lieutenant's fingers flew across his console, and suddenly, every human on Earth felt it. A connection not like the hegemony's forced integration or even the Guardian's knowledge transfer, but something uniquely human. A network of consciousness that maintained our individuality while linking our minds. The Void Hunters' living ships reached toward Earth with tentacles of dark energy, expecting to find their perfect specimen ready for harvest. Instead, they found something unprecedented: humanity, standing united not through forced evolution or external control, but through choice. I stepped forward, feeling the combined strength of billions of human minds flowing through me. You wanted to see if we could adapt. I transmitted, my voice carrying the weight of our entire species. Watch this. The quantum resonance network exploded with power. Every piece of technology on Earth, human, hegemony, and Guardian, responded to our collective will. The suspended hegemony ships found themselves freed, but instead of fleeing, they hung in space, witnessing what their rigid society had never achieved. The Void Hunters' ships recoiled as humanity demonstrated exactly why we've been chosen. Not because we were perfect specimens, but because we could do what no engineered species could. We could change ourselves while remaining fundamentally human. The tear in space began to fluctuate as we pushed back against their influence. The Guardian ships, responding to our unified consciousness, moved into formation around Earth. But we weren't preparing for a fight. We were preparing to make a choice. You created the hegemony to bring order. I transmitted to the Void Hunters. You created the Guardians to find worthy species. But you forgot something crucial about evolution. It's not about becoming what others want you to be. It's about becoming what you choose to be. The quantum resonance network pulsed with power as humanity made its decision. The knowledge of the Guardians, the technology of the hegemony, the very fabric of space-time that the Void Hunters manipulated, all of it was just tools. What mattered was how we chose to use them. With a thought, we released the hegemony ships. With another, we began transmitting everything we learned to every species in the galaxy. The Void Hunters' grand experiment wasn't ending. It was transforming into something they never expected. We choose neither to rule nor to serve. Admiral Chen transmitted, his voice carrying the agreement of our entire species. We choose to share, to teach, to help others make their own choices. The Void Hunters' ships withdrew, their dark energy tentacles retracting. For the first time in their ancient existence, they faced something they couldn't control or predict, a species that had taken their test and turned it into something entirely new. But as they retreated through their spatial tier, we detected something in their final transmission, not anger or disappointment, but satisfaction. In their own way, they too had been waiting for a species that would break free from their control. As the tier in space sealed itself, Earth hung suspended between the Guardian ships and the freed hegemony fleet. The quantum resonance network hummed with possibilities as humanity faced its new reality. We had not just survived an invasion or passed a test. We had fundamentally changed the rules of the game. Lieutenant Rivera looked up from his console, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Captain Chen," he said, "we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Other species. They want to learn how we did it. They want to make their own choices." I looked out at the stars, knowing that this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Humanity hadn't just earned its place in the galaxy. We had chosen it, and that made all the difference. "Well," Admiral Chen said, placing a hand on my shoulder, "I guess we have some teaching to do." The real challenge wasn't going to be fighting against control anymore. It would be helping others learn to choose their own paths, just as we had chosen ours. As I watched the hegemony ships begin their departure, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the war, it's in changing the reason for fighting in the first place. The stars seemed brighter somehow, filled with new possibilities. Humanity had done more than survive. We had shown the galaxy a new way forward, and that was just the beginning of our story.